So hello guys, and welcome to another video, and recently we got two new developer interviews for Mario & Luigi Brothership from Famitsu and Nintendo Dream, respectively, and they go into some interesting detail about certain elements including character designs, the story, as well as the music, and some things like previous titles too, which are pretty interesting, so I kind of wanted to go into that and discuss that here. And with the characters, they mentioned some of the things that we kind of expected, like the fact that like the Concordians, as well as like villains and other characters, are kind of like based on like different wires and things, and like the fact that the extension core are actually like sockets based on like different things like a phone plug, DVI cable, and LAN cable, unlike the Concordians, which are outlets. Which we already knew, but it is pretty interesting, and I really like that detail of them in everything. But they also mentioned something interesting about Peach, because they wanted her to have a different outfit in the game, but Nintendo was a bit hesitant about it. So they kind of justified a slight outfit change by giving her a scarf and having her join Idol. I think this is pretty interesting that Nintendo was a bit hesitant on that, because I feel like Nintendo is definitely more, like, protective over the main characters than, like, adding new characters or modifying, like, enemies and stuff like that, but I don't really think this is, like, mandates or anything. This is more so, like, Nintendo being hesitant based over, like, the context, because Peach really only has, like, outfit changes where it, like, the context makes sense. And yes, she does have a lot of, like, outfit changes, as we saw in, like, Peach Showtime, but that was, like, the main gimmick of the game. Super Mario Odyssey and Super Paper Mario, where, like, the wedding setting made sense for that. And then also the sports games, so they kind of had to find something to justify Peach getting, like, a little scarf for, like, Idol and everything. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, because Nintendo didn't really seem to be, like, that restrictive over, like, any other elements of the game. So I guess it's more like a main character type thing. Nintendo is, like, kind of more protective over, like, Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Bowser. So that it was probably a case of that. And another thing that was really interesting is how they talked about the story. Because they actually particularly wanted it to be a little darker and more mature, and it was actually partially because of the movie. Not because of the plot of the movie, because it is, like, fairly basic, I would say, even though I like the Mario movie. It isn't really, like, a dark plot or anything. It still is, like a basic kind of Mario plot, but it is more cinematic and dramatic compared to most Mario things. So I guess that kind of, on Nintendo's end, they were okay with more, like, darker stories in the games, or more in-depth stories in the game, since, like, the basic iteration of Mario did get a slight glow-up in the movie, so I could see, like, how that kind of impacted that a little bit, because, like, the Mario movie is, like, a slightly more in-depth story compared to, like, most mainline Mario games, and that was being pushed out like a mainline Mario game in Nintendo's eyes, so I could see on the RPG end, they would be okay with darker stories and everything. So I think that was pretty interesting, that they were actually, like, wanting to make this story darker. They actually kind of already shown that in the, Ask the Developer interviews from Nintendo directly. But it was interesting seeing them, like, specifically say that they were kind of going into, like, a darker plot and actually going with it for the final game. So, yeah. But I kind of like that they are going in, like, a direction where they're having more darker stories and more interesting stories and everything. So, yeah. And another thing is the title. Is, interestingly, they actually were going to call it Mario & Luigi Wonder, which I think is a funny coincidence, because they ended up, like, scrapping that title when Super Mario Bros. Wonder ended up being a thing. Imagine a timeline where we got, like, both Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Mario & Luigi Wonder. I think that would have been pretty funny. Like the whole Mario brand just kind of like became like Wonder at that point. But I don't know, like I guess Wonder like fits Brothership too, because I think like similar to Wonder, Brothership is also just like very creative and wacky in a lot of ways. So it definitely fits the title of that game too. But moving on to the Famitsu article, there were some things that were mentioned about the music, and yeah, they kind of mentioned how they respected Yoko Shimomura's work in the past Mario and Luigi games, but they actually wanted to have a fresh start when they moved over to Acquire. I think it's a bit weird that they did that, but at the same time I can kind of understand it if they wanted a bit of a change of pace for Mario and Luigi. Honestly, what I think they should have done is have both Hideki Sakamoto and Yoko Shimomura compose for it, but I think this is also due to the fact that Yoko Shimomura was busy with Kingdom Hearts 4, so I think that's kind of understandable on that end, but Sakamoto did a great job with the Mario and Luigi Brothership soundtrack, so I definitely respect him on that part, and they actually chose him partially because they already knew of his work in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and different things like that, so they did know like of him previously, but I think it was pretty interesting. And one thing that they were kind of struggling with, like Sakamoto specifically with the music, is the Mario-ness of it. And they have to capture that certain style to it. And they actually mentioned how they requested that the music would have a greater sense of liveliness and included more brass and percussion to it. And like they kind of capture that Mario-ness feel to it, because it definitely does have more like brass and percussion than previous Mario and Luigi games. I would say it did have some in certain games, but like it definitely is more focused on that this time. But yeah, and they also mentioned like South American instruments for like the tunes kind of like became like brighter and everything, and the direction kind of like they kind of eased into that Mario-like direction. So I think that's pretty interesting. And they also kind of like mixed it with this kind of theme of journeying around an ocean. But yeah, I think the direction that they went in is great. I could definitely tell that Hideki Sakamoto took a lot of inspiration from Yoko Shimomura, because, like, while it does sound a little different from the other Mario and Luigi games, when you listen to the area themes, you can definitely hear, like, a lot of inspiration from past games. And I could definitely see the vision there. I think this soundtrack is really underrated, and I feel like over time, more people will appreciate it. Like, I think just due to the shock of Yoko Shimomura not composing for Mario Luigi anymore, just kind of scared people away from listening to the soundtrack, but I think over time, a lot of people will warm up to it, because I think it is a pretty good soundtrack overall, and I would say it is as good as some of the others. I wouldn't say it quite hits as hard as Dream Team's soundtrack does, but it is still quite good. But yeah, it was nice getting a little more information about Mario and Luigi Brothership's development outside of the Ask the Developer interview. I wish we got stuff like this for the Thousand Year Door remake, but I don't know. Like, like at least something like from Nintendo Dream or Famitsu, but I can understand why they didn't do as much for that, because that was a remake. But still, it was nice seeing stuff from Mario and Luigi Brothership. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Goodbye.